Welcome to Underwater CSI International Revealed with your hosts, Senior Investigators Rich Morin and Ed Myron.
Thank
you, Rich, for that introduction. Welcome again to another episode of Underwater CSI International Revealed. I'm Senior Investigator Ed Myron, and with me today
is Senior Investigator Rich Morin.
Rich, how you doing?
Doing great, buddy.
Man, another show coming up here.
Yeah, this has been good. I really enjoy meeting up again. You know, since I retired a few years ago, this has been good.
Yeah. So
I didn't enjoy moving back stateside really, as far as weather goes. I've been living in the Caribbean the last 6 years, but it's good to be back stateside. You know,
yep.
living in the mountains of Tennessee now, in a nice community up here. It's just been gorgeous.
That's great. Not too much water around here, but you know.
And how's New York treating you, buddy?
Yeah, thanks.
9 months of winter and 3 months of bad sledding.
Yeah, you had to bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today's show kind of hits home for both of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So want to tell them what the title is?
It's going to be Lives in Jeopardy. Is this the end of a senior investigator?
Yeah, we're not just talking about Rich's age as far as senior investigator. So we're going to kind of go through this. And, this one kind of hits home for both of us.
Yeah, it happened in New York.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Upstate.
Yep.
Actually, to be a little bit more specific. We try not to give away too much detail as far as, you know, locations and other things like that, you know, to try to protect, you know, potential cases and individuals and, you know, stuff like that. But,
yep.
it was upstate, and we got the call came in from a fire department dive team.
Yep. A local agency that we've dealt with before.
Yeah. Great guys.
Yeah.
You know, great group of guys.
Yep.
You know, we've done some training with them up there, up in the northeast part of the United States. And, you know, they've done very well.
Yeah.
But the great thing was they got into a situation where they realized it was probably beyond their capabilities, and they made the right decision and made the call.
Right.
You know, there's even jobs sometimes that we get called out on that we realize, you know what, this is beyond us.
Right.
You know, we need to get commercial divers in here. We need to get salvage divers in here.
Right.
You know, we're not going to be able to do this. We need to know what our limitations are also.
Right. Heavy equipment operators with cranes or what have you.
Absolutely.
We're not going to get
on
involved.
that one silo.
Right.
For that hydroelectric plant. You know, we needed all kinds of specialized people on that one.
Right.
That was way beyond our abilities and capabilities on that. So yeah, they took a look at this and they said, wow, this is beyond us.
Right.
This is beyond our level of training and experience and comfort zone. We need to call these guys in.
Right.
And, you know, greatly appreciated. And, you know, once again, good big shout out to them for doing the right thing.
Right. Again, some people may not have made the right choice. And then there could be other issues.
Yeah. This particular topic we're going to talk about today is this the end of a senior investigator. This happened on the Hudson River, right? Fast moving water.
Yep.
It happened upstream. A boat capsized with 3 fishermen on it, and you know they're getting swept downstream. 2 managed to make it to shore, and 1 never made it home.
Right.
The local dive team searched and searched and searched. You know, again being careful because downstream was a hydroelectric plant that they had to be concerned about, and they were having challenging times locating the victim.
Right.
So that's when the call came in.
That's right. So we went ahead and again interview the other 2 fishermen.
Yeah, after putting our specialized team together, because we have people that more or less specialize in swift water and conditions like that. And we also know that there's a hydroelectric plant that could be involved. So we got to get people that are comfortable in overhead environments and things like that. So our staff is pretty diverse.
Right.
Yep.
So we go ahead and deploy our techniques as far as locating what we consider now a victim, since the fire department couldn't locate him, and we go ahead and locate the victim. You want to tell them where
Well, actually, we started upstream, and because of the current conditions, we put a jackstay line across the river.
Right.
The jackstay line allowed us to use the line to maintain our position in the water, and we had one person on each side, and actually starting off on different shorelines. So we have one dive team on one side, one dive team on another, and then we go ahead with intercom communication. We signal when we're getting ready to go, and we go ahead and we start to sweep across the river. Once we get to the other side, if we hadn't found the victim, then we move the line down a little bit, and we do the same thing coming back, move it down a little bit, etc. We weren't successful as far as finding the victim yet. We searched a large part of the river. Now we're concerned that maybe the victim got swept over the dam and headed downstream even further.
Right.
But because there is a hydroelectric plant at the dam, off to the side, they have water that gets diverted into a holding area. In that holding area, that's the feeder water that goes into the lower units of the turbine, which actually spins the blades, that spins the shaft, which is connected to the portion of the turbine topside that creates the electricity.
Right. So
we decide that we're going to go ahead, before we continue to go more downstream of the hydro plant, we're going to go search the diverted water, the gated area,
areas, right.
where the water is, the intake is for the hydroelectric plant. And sure enough, we come across the victim that is pinned solid up against the grates. And from the condition of the victim and the clothing and everything else, there's been a lot of water force on them, and possibly potential evidence got sucked through the gates and maybe into the lower units of the hydroelectric plant.
Right. So then what happens?
Now we have to contact the hydroelectric plant and let them know that, we have a potential crime scene and we need to search.
Right.
This hydroelectric plant is a good size. It had areas for 7 turbines. They had one spot that was empty. Okay. So they had 6 operating turbines in here. And so what we needed to do is search them one at a time.
Right.
Now, in order to search them, what we do first is we go up into the control room and we make sure we put a lockout, tag out on that particular portion, because we're going to have people down there.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't accidentally get turned operational. We also, up on the control board, they have butterfly lights on it. One's green for open and one's red for the flapper valve is closed. That leads to a 20-inch discharge pipe.
Right.
So we're showing red light. We got our lockout tag out on the system. Now, below the main floor of the hydroelectric plant, most people, when they see pictures of the inside, they're seeing the top portion. They're not seeing the shaft going down to the lower units, et cetera, and the big blades that are going to be spinning by the water flow going through. Now, this is gravity fed, so they have a big, giant holding area. Then, along where the 7 areas are for the hydroelectric generators themselves, it's all graded. So once they open up that flapper valve, water is allowed to flow through the intake grates and then into the lower unit. Okay, then the water discharges out through this 20-inch pipe downstream, and it causes a lot of water flow, which starts to spin the shaft,
blades.
The blades, and the position of the blades, or the pitch of the blades rather, creates even more suction of water coming through, and next thing you know, it's spinning at a pretty good speed.
Right.
Once they close that flapper valve, then it'll slow down and eventually come to a stop. So we have to go down and inspect this area where the water flow is going to be contained. That's going to eventually feed through this 20-inch open pipe.
Correct.
All right. So below the main floor of the hydroelectric plant, there's a concrete tunnel. It's approximately 3 feet tall, about 4 feet wide. It runs the whole length of the building, and you can see the pipe heads that lead down into the lower units. And these pipe heads are, have a cap on top, and they're held in. I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it was 16 bolts that held it in, and it's a 22 or 24-inch pipe, I believe. All I know, it was tough. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2", and at that time I was quite a bit thinner. I was running probably about 185 pounds. I'm about 235 now. Yeah. Yeah, and that's with both feet on the scale.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty big guy. But anyway, it was like, whew, this is going to be tough for me to squeeze through it. I mean, a little puny guy like you, no problem. You still have room to bounce around on both sides. What are you, like 5'1"?
Yeah, right.
All right. So
for all
anyway,
you listeners out there, I'm 5'11", but that's okay.
Anyway, so we, we start off with obviously the number one turbine, and we have, their crew there also, the hydroelectric plant, the engineers there, and they have, their workers down there.
And we have additional staff with us as well.
We have additional staff also. And we have a smaller staff member with us, and good thing we did.
Right.
We'll talk about that here in a minute. But they went ahead and unbolted the top of this pipe head and told us that this has not been opened in 75 years. Oh, good.
Which is never a good sign.
Yeah. So once the bolts were all done and the cap was pulled off, we've got a pipe that's leading down to the ceiling of the area, the water containment area where the water is going to actually go down into the discharge pipe.
Right.
So we were instructed that it's 22 feet high from floor to ceiling. We had roughly 19 feet of water in there. Right. So we had a little bit of an area up above it so that we could be lowered down. I was having a little bit more of a challenging time. I could not go down with the dry suit because of the valves, et cetera. It just wasn't giving me enough area. I had to go down with just a wetsuit, fold my shoulders in, try to get myself as small of a frame as possible.
And again, you weren't wearing gear at this point.
Right.
You're just wearing your wetsuit.
Just my wetsuit. We had to pour vegetable oil all around the pipe, right? Because the pipe had been stagnant for 75 years.
Right.
And so it's kind of rough on the inside, could easily tear equipment. By coating it with oil, it was going to make it a little bit easier for us to slide down. In. Now, you were able to come down pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. You're a slender guy, well built and stuff. And, like you said, 5'11", maybe like 5'9".
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, but they had to actually take a 2x4 against my shoulders and kind of push me down. I think the distance of the pipe, if I'm not mistaken, was about 8 to 10 feet. And then boom, then we dropped down onto the surface of the water.
Right. Or surface of the debris.
Yeah. Because once we got down there, we had 75 years of debris, mostly plastic and styrofoams and stuff, floating on the surface. And man, did it stink.
And it was bad.
Yeah, it was thick. I mean, it went all the way to the ceiling. So here we are trying to push stuff away just so that we could see each other for one.
Right.
All right. But let's back up a minute. Oh, yeah. So that was number one. All right?
Yep.
So that was number one. So what we're going to do now is they're going to lower our gear down to us.
Right.
Okay. They put a tripod up over the hole.
Right.
And they're going to lower our gear down to us. Okay. With a winch system. So we get our gear, but we are having a difficult time getting it on because of all the debris in the water.
Right.
So what they do is we had one of our staff members who was a smaller person. They lowered her down into the water, or actually she was in a harness and they just suspended her over the surface of the water. Her legs were down in it, but she was able to help us get into our gear and get our pre-dive safety checks done for us.
Right.
To check over. We prior to descending, we once again did a quick check as far as on each other, make sure pre-dive safety check we were good. And then we checked our comm units so that we could talk to surface and diver to diver.
Right.
So everything was operational. At that point, they hand down a 20-foot floor jack, all right, that we have to put one end on the flapper valve itself and the other end up toward the ceiling. And then we have to crank it down. And it's a threaded rod that continues to rise. And so we had to crank it down a little over 2 feet in order to get it secured against the ceiling, crank it down as hard as we could so that just in case accidentally somebody, even though we have a red light and a lockout tag out on that system, if somebody accidentally opened up that valve, all right, that ceiling jack that we now have on it will prevent it from opening up.
Right.
Right. Now, as far as the valve themselves go, behind, it's kind of like a flapper valve similar to what's in a toilet. Okay.
Right.
It drops down when the water pressure subsides and closes off, and then it fills up, et cetera. Well, because they weren't completely depleting the water supply, they had to have it work a separate way. All right. Behind the flapper valve itself, where it opened up and it was fully, vertical.
Right.
Behind that was a big concrete pillar. Served two purposes. One, held the building up.
Yeah.
All right. But two, inside the concrete pillar was a pipe that a chain fit in. And the chain came down through the concrete pillar from upstairs, okay,
Right.
from above where we were. It came down through the pillar and exited out. It had a hole where the chain came out and was attached to the flapper valve. Okay. So up in the control panel, which is actually up above on the third floor,
Right.
in the plant itself, once they activated it, to close the valve, it actually released a winch system. And as the winch system was letting chain out, the length of the chain is what determined when it was going to be stopped.
Right.
Okay.
The position of
the position of
that
the chain.
concrete.
Exactly. So what happened is the chain would, basically gravity fall
Right.
through that pipe.
Right.
And then the flapper valve, because there's no tension on it now,
Right.
the water flow would actually start to slowly close
Right.
the flapper valve
Right.
as the winch is winding down.
Right.
When they're ready to open it, they do just now it's just a matter of water pressure holding it down.
Right.
When they're ready to start up that turbine, they just reverse the winch, the chain gets pulled up, pulls the flapper valve up. When they have a certain length of chain that's pulled back up, they know the flapper valve is fully open.
Right.
You got to remember, 75 years, this thing, no one's been down there.
Right.
They didn't have any electronic switches or indicators or anything
Right.
else.
No sensors.
It was all done by length of chain.
Right.
Okay. So first job goes easy. All right. We drop down, we go ahead, we find the flapper valve, we put up the ceiling jack, and we do our initial investigation, and we're not finding anything.
Right. Everything looks good.
Yeah, it looks good. So we go ahead and we move over to number two. So now we have to surface, first of all, obviously, and then they've got to, send the cable down. We have to take our gear off. They pull it up, one scuba unit at a time. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think you went first because you were worried that I'd get stuck in that pipe and you wouldn't be able to get out. I wouldn't be able
to get out. Yeah.
So,
which was a good idea.
Yeah. So we both had full body harnesses on. So they sent the cable down. We hooked onto the back of your harness. They pulled you up. With me, I had to kind of reach up as high as I could to kind of get my shoulders in a little bit more.
Right.
And then once the cable came down, hooked on to it and pulled up, and it was a little easier coming up than it was going down.
Right.
Then they went ahead and put the cap back on, bolted it all back down. Then we moved over to number two. So it's taken a while. I mean, it's these bolts are big. The head is really big, et cetera.
And again, the area that we're working in, very tight quarters. Like you said, it was the ceiling
3 feet high, 4 feet wide.
Right.
Yeah.
The ceiling's not very. So we're crawling around in there.
Yeah. Because why is anyone going to be there? There's no reason to, unless you're going to dewater the plant and refurbish everything.
Right.
There's no reason to be there.
Right. So here's our crew, their crew,
engineer,
all in this small contained area. Yeah. Great that it's long. But it's long, narrow, and very low ceiling. So we're all crawling around in there. We have dive gear. We have their equipment to unbolt and the tripod to lower us in, lower our gear in. So there's a lot to do.
Absolutely.
It's just not, okay, 5 minutes. Okay, let's move on to the next one. That's not the way it happens.
Yep. And so we go on to number two. They unbolt it, and again, pretty uneventful.
Right.
We drop down. We're in communication with each other, in communication with the surface. We go ahead. We put the ceiling jack in. We do our initial investigation, and we find what we think might be a little bit of evidence. But later on, we found out that it wasn't
right.
part of the victim.
Right.
Right. And again, the only reason we're attempting to do this is because we have an accident that occurred.
Right.
2 people survived, 1 didn't. But just like we talked about in previous shows, we don't know these people. We don't know what the circumstance is. We don't know what the whole thing was. So we have to handle it as a potential crime scene.
Right.
All right. So here we are in number 2 now. All right. We drop down, uneventful. We do our thing. Okay. We come on back up. We kind of got the system down now.
Right.
They lowered, our staff member down, helped us into our gear. Same thing, full of debris.
Right.
And stink. Oh, man, it was just wicked. And the bottom. Remember, it was just a concrete bottom, but it was so slimy
and slippery.
Yeah. Oh, It was just 75 years of just slime built up, and you could smell it right through your mask.
Yeah.
One of the things that we carry with us in our gear bags is staff members carry a bottle of Vicks Vapor Rub. And we'll give a shout out to Vicks. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And when we're dealing with victims underwater and they've been down there for a while, or in a case like this where the stench is so bad, we'll actually coat the inside of our nose pocket with Vicks Vapor Rub so that we can do our job where we're not getting sick because of the smell.
Yep.
And even with victims, I mean, sometimes a victim has been down there for a while. We know when we're getting closer because we can actually smell them through our mask.
Yep.
And the intensity of that smell increases as we start getting closer to that victim. It's pretty bad. So that's why we carry the Vicks.
Yep. And then, like you were saying before, things started to go a little bit smoother because we were starting to get the process down.
Right.
And through one of your suggestions with the crew there, was, hey, once you get us lower down and once we descend, you were like, hey, you guys start on the next one, getting everything prepped and ready. So once we come out, we can go on to the next one, and we're not waiting topside for you to get everything undone. We can get going a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so, and I had previous experience with hydroelectric plants, but not as an underwater CSI specialist.
Right.
I mean, I did that when we were doing commercial work. So this was a completely different situation, right? Because, hey, we're doing commercial work. We didn't have comm units on us. Most of the time we'd go down just to dewater the plant. So we'd secure everything, wait till it dewaters and stuff, and, install the outer gates and things like that. But, it's a completely different situation now.
Right.
And we have a lot of specialized, delicate equipment we're bringing down as far as our forensics equipment goes in case we do find evidence.
Right.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So now we're going into number 3.
All right. Number 3 is a little different. Once the head of the pipe was taken off, I heard water flow.
Right.
And I am concerned. Now, you got to remember, too, each time we're at another pipe head, somebody's got to crawl all the way down this tunnel and out the egress area and then all the way up, to the control room and take our lockout tag out, and move it to another spot and check the lights and make sure that the winch is, is where it should be as far as length of chain, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's up and down, in and out. I mean, it's taken a little bit of while.
Right.
So once we take that head of the pipe off, number 3, I'm leaning in there and listening, and I can hear water flow.
Right.
And it's a huge concern of mine. The engineer for the hydroelectric plant was telling me it was in my imagination. There was no water flow, that the lockout tag is in place, that the butterfly valve is red, that the length of chain is correct, and, that it's all in my head. And basically, we can't keep this closed forever. Get down there and do your job.
Right. So he was reassuring us that there is no water flow, that we're hearing water from the other section of the building.
Another part of the plant. Right.
And you were pretty adamant that it wasn't from another section of the plant.
I had a bad feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I stopped everything right there. Okay. And, we went back up, you and I went back up to the control room to double check everything. Man, everything looked right.
Yep.
The butterfly valve was red. The lockout tag, the tagout lockout was unplaced. The length of chain, everything looked good.
Right.
But when we went back down there, I still heard water.
Right.
All right. And the engineer was starting to get a little
agitated.
Yeah, a little. Well, I was going to say pissy, but I didn't know if I could say that or not. But getting a little agitated, and
because he wanted us to move along. Let's get going.
Right. They want to get this plant back open to full capacity and stuff, and we're preventing that from happening. So now, we make the decision to continue on. Right. So we get lowered down. They lower our staff member to help us get into our gear, do our pre-dive safety check, do our comm checks and stuff. You and I do a final pre-dive safety check on each other.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I don't mean to interrupt. So initially, in dropping down, we could definitely hear water, but initially, in hitting the surface and in getting our gear on.
Yeah, we weren't feeling anything out of the ordinary.
Right. Everything seemed the same as in the other shafts.
Yeah. Right. But we could hear the echo of water because we had that 3-foot height between the surface of the water, all that junk and the ceiling.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So it's like, oh man, I don't know if it's here. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's coming from another part of the plant. I
Right.
don't know, but I just never had a good feeling about this.
Right.
Right. And again, we're not in lines at all.
Right.
Okay. We are in dive gear, not free diving as far as snorkeling goes, but we're not in, lines connected up through the pipe and up
Right.
to the people topside. So they sent the floor jack down to us.
Right.
Right. And I went ahead and grabbed that. You and I, we go through our procedures for our descent, and we start to drop down.
Right.
And almost immediately we're caught. That
Right.
current has got us, and it's pulling us toward this
Opening.
20-inch pipe.
Right.
I'm not going to fit in a 20-inch pipe.
Right.
Okay. And I remember a job that I had done years prior to go finish a job that a diver had been sucked into head first.
Don't go into all those gory details.
Okay. And didn't turn out well for him, let me tell you.
Right.
So anyway, both you and I are getting sucked toward this thing.
Exactly.
You just happen to be on my back, so like you normally are.
Yeah. Right.
No, so you were on my left-hand side because we're getting sucked in feet first now.
Right.
And you're on my left-hand side, which you are going to be closer to that pillar.
Right.
As we're starting to get sucked in. I wasn't quite so fortunate. And we're both, I don't know what happened at the ceiling jack at this point, man. I let it go, and we were just scrambling, trying to find anything that we can grab onto, and there's nothing there.
No, the bottom is
slime.
Right.
Yeah. So as we get sucked to it, my right leg gets sucked into this 20-inch intake.
Right.
And to be honest, man, I wasn't really focused on you at this point because this thing was pulling me apart. It was
Right.
pulling my leg right out of my hip socket.
Right.
And I am just trying to claw, trying to find something. Because I can just feel it just starting to pull my leg off.
Right.
My fin, I had fins with spring straps on them. My fin got pulled off where my spring strap stretched all the way and eventually broke.
Right.
So that fin's gone. It's downstream somewhere and out through the discharge pipe further
Right.
off the dam itself. It's gone. And
I happened to get around behind the pillar.
The flapper valve.
Yeah, behind the pillar by the flapper valve.
So you got your back up against that pillar now.
Right.
And
I'm yelling to you in the comms, but you can't get to the comm because you're still trying to
find something.
Right. And I'm yelling, grab something, reach out, do something.
And we were just out of reach of each other because I wasn't able to get my body to swing around closer.
Right.
Because you could reach the flapper valve, but I couldn't get my body around. I'm coming in at a different angle.
Right.
And it's got me good.
Right.
I finally find a piece of rebar that's sticking out of the floor.
Right.
All right. Enough for me to get my little finger, ring finger, and middle finger around it of my right hand.
Right.
I take my left hand and I wrap it around my right hand and I start pulling with everything that I got. My leg's coming out slowly. All right. So I'm not flailing around anymore. And now I'm also able to look to my left and see where you are.
Right.
All right. And it's like, you know what? I think if I can get myself up far enough, if we do this quick enough, now I still can't get to my comm unit because I'm a little busy right now.
Right. And I'm trying to talk to you.
Giving me direction and I can hear you.
Yep.
I just can't respond to you.
Right.
All right. And I'm not even doing any head nods because I know if I let go now, I'm done.
Yeah, it's over.
I'm all done because I don't have the strength. This leg's not going to hold up.
Right.
It's already dislocated. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And I start pulling to where I can get myself out enough where I reduce the suction.
Right.
Right. And I'm able to reach out enough to where you grabbed onto me and were able to get me out of there.
Get your back behind us.
Right. And get behind that flapper valve.
Right.
So now we have another dilemma.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we get out?
And I remember hearing you like, topside, we have a problem.
Right.
Like mission control, we have a problem.
Houston.
Yeah, Houston. Yeah.
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And I said to them, and they were, well, what's the issue? What's the problem? And I said, I'll be back to you.
Yeah. I think you told them that the valve is open and Rich got sucked in.
Right.
All right. Stand by.
Right.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, oh boy, man, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. And it happened just so quickly. It was just it's just hard to imagine. It was just so quick.
Yeah.
So and it seemed like we were down there for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was only minutes.
Yeah.
It was minutes.
So now we're both with our back against the pillar behind the open flapper valve, And now we got another issue.
Right.
We got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
We cannot, if we leave there, no matter which direction we go,
we're going to get sucked in.
We're going to get sucked into this pipe.
Right.
So we come up with a plan to, because now I'm thinking, why is that winch, the length of the chain, why is it proper up there? Why is everything set?
Right.
Yet this flapper valve's wide open and it has tension on the chain.
Right.
Okay. And again, you got to remember this chain is 75 years old.
Right.
So we decide that we put our feet up against the backside of what would be the top of the flapper valve. And we use the pillar as leverage, and we just started pushing and pushing and pushing with everything we had.
Oh,
and
were you actually pushing?
I was just gonna ask you.
Oh,
that.
I thought I was the only one.
Yeah,
pushing.
but you got those chicken legs. There's no muscle
there
there.
Was no way that you were pushing because to your bad knees, and then you got the flappy leg from the being sucked in. So I was doing all the pushing. Go ahead. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So
finally, I broke the chain.
Yeah.
Which caused the valve to close
sharply. It wasn't a gentle close like it normally does, with tension on it and
right.
water pressure slowly closing it. When we broke that chain from pushing on it, that thing closed and made a noise that they said echoed through the whole building, and people were wondering what happened.
Right.
And so we took a couple minutes to rest and kind of, regain everything, and we found the floor jack and we put that in place. And I remember surfacing and looking up through this pipe hole.
Now, just remember, you can't use those kind of words during our show.
I'll be careful. And I politely asked if I could speak to the engineer that told us that it was okay and there was no water flow.
Oh, is that what they called it?
He went ahead and stuck his head over the pipe where I could see him. And I might have explained to him that if he was anywhere on the premises when we happened to get out of there, that
it probably wait, I'll stop you right there. It probably wouldn't. He probably wasn't going to have a good ending.
Yeah, and we continued, the following day, and he was nowhere on premises.
Right.
I mean, we never saw him again. I was a little upset, to say the least. My leg is dislocated and sore as anything. We're both beat. We had to come back the following day to finish that investigation and continue on with the last three.
Right.
But
both of us with our backs up against the wall, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been bad for you in the initial descent. It could have been bad for me as well. If we weren't able to get that chain broken free, we probably wouldn't be doing this show right now.
That's right, because with those curly legs that you have, there's no way you would have been able to break that chain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The only guy I know on his fins has heels on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
So we made it through.
Yep.
Again, saved your life again.
Once again.
I don't know how many times.
Well, there was another time, but we won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's we ended up not finding any other evidence in the lower units of the turbines. The rest of the investigation went smooth, no issues.
No issues.
I got replaced with another staff member who, went down and finished the job for me. You still continued on.
Right.
But I was a little on the sore side after that. But it ended up turning out to be, it was an accident.
It was an accident.
Yeah,
right.
It was an accident overall. We were able to close off the hydros enough to where we stopped water flow. We were able to extract the victim off the gates because they were stuck pretty hard on that.
Right.
We still basically bagged the feet, bagged the hands, bagged the head, bagged the body underwater. News crews were there at that time, which many cases that we're on, they are. And, we want to make sure that we, protect the victim,
right.
show them respect,
and
the family,
right.
That's, standing by, et cetera, make sure that, we don't have any pictures out there that shouldn't be out there of the victim as we're bringing them up. That's why we go ahead and take the time to do everything that we do.
And what was which was nice was the other fishermen, thanked us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we could tell. I mean, sincere crying and
right.
I mean, just really, really upset.
Thanked us for putting our lives in jeopardy for everything that we did there. So it was almost another tragedy, but again, that was diverted.
And the fire department dive team, for having the hindsight to say, you know what, hey, this is beyond us.
Right.
Let us call these guys in and.
Right.
And so that was great.
Yeah.
That was great. It was nice seeing everybody again.
Yeah.
On the dive team. We had worked with them before. It was really good seeing them.
Exactly.
And I hope we work with them again, maybe in a training situation. Hopefully they don't call us for, something bad. I mean, I've been retired, but I'd like to get, I'm tired of retirement.
Yeah, right.
I want to get back to work.
So what do we have coming up for our next show?
Our next show, what do you think would be a good one?
Well, there's that's the hard part. We have so many different ones. It's tough to choose from.
You know what, Ed? Let's take this next one to the Caribbean.
Oh,
right. We were down there doing a insurance job,
right.
At this one particular island, and while we were coming back from one of the days. We were driving down the road, and all of a sudden my head kind of snapped around, and I looked at you and I go, "Did you see that?"
Yeah, right.
And at this gas station, here was a truck pulling a Go Fast boat, a big long cigarette boat they used to call them, but Go Fast boats. But it had a davit on it.
Right. So don't
basically the davit is a crane, a little crane on it.
Don't give too much away because that's going to be the next one we're talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, the next one is going to be Go Fast boat, right?
Based in the Caribbean.
Is it a new form of tourism?
Yeah.
Or something else?
With the crane?
Yeah. Right. Is that how they pull their clients back up onto the boat if they want to go for a swim?
Right.
Or could it be something else?
Right.
All right. So join us for our next episode, when we talk about the Go Fast boat on a Caribbean island.
Yep. And again, we appreciate everybody. We appreciate everybody listening and taking part in these things. And we look forward to you guys tuning in again. And again, if you like it, please let everybody know. If you don't like it, please don't say anything.
Like, share. Okay. We want to try to get enough viewers so that we can start reenacting these and actually put it on video for you so you can see everything that's involved. We're kind of condensing everything right now for the podcast, but we want to try to share the entire experience with you, with maybe an hour-long show.
Right. So this is Senior Investigator Ed Myron.
And I'm Senior Investigator Rich Morin. And you've been listening to Underwater CSI International
Revealed.
On behalf of everyone at Underwater CSI International, Revealed, this is Randy Overton. Thank you for tuning in. Underwater CSI International Revealed is for entertainment purposes only. The information revealed is not intended, nor is it a substitution for the proper training and education received from a qualified dive professional. Certain episodes are loosely based on and may be modified from actual cases. Some episodes are fictional based, featuring procedures that could possibly be used by underwater investigators. Resemblance to destinations, actual cases, or persons living or deceased is purely coincidental.